Welcome to Writer's Digest Presents. I'm Editor-in-Chief Amy Jones alongside Editor Michael Woodson. Today we are joined by novelist and journalist Wabgijig Rice. Wab is the author of Moon of the Crusted Snow and Moon of the Turning Leaves, two books that I cannot stop thinking about. Wab, thanks so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you.
Hi, Amy and Michael. Thanks a lot for having me. Real pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah. Before we get into our questions and discussions, could you give our listeners sort of a summary of what Moon of the Crusted Snow and Moon of the Turning Leaves are about?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Moon of the Crescent Snow is a post-apocalyptic story of sorts about a Anishinaabe community in far northern Ontario that experiences a sudden blackout, a loss of electricity, telecommunications, etc. And because this community is so far north, somewhat isolated, it's not an immediate crisis for them because there's still some land-based skills that are thriving in the community, like hunting and harvesting from the land and so on, right? But as the weeks go on, things start to unravel slowly because there are no answers about the blackout or no contact whatsoever with the world to the south. And then that tension sort of ramps up a bit when an unexpected visitor arrives on a snowmobile from the city to the south, and then he's followed by some others. And that sort of upsets the balance in the community a little more, and the community members are forced to make some tough decisions. We see, a power struggle. But ultimately, what we also find are rediscoveries of the land, reconnections with it, opportunities for renewal, et cetera, et cetera. All that comes to a head. And at the end of the story, the community finds itself in a newer place. Not to give too much away for listeners who haven't read it yet. So Moon of the Turning Leaves picks back up in this new place that they've settled in. 10 years after the end of Moon of the Crusted Snow, which is 12 years after the initial blackout. And the community discovers that a lot of the natural resources around them are starting to deplete. And they recognize that traditionally, as Anishinaabe people, they would have been migratory according to season, according to food supply, and so on. And they figure it's finally time to move on. There have been some failed expeditions to the south and other directions to, find answers after the blackout, but those were largely unsuccessful. So finally, they decide, it's time to make a larger quest to the south. And they also recognize that, they don't have any answers, so they have to see what's going on. And also, the community's history is one of displacement. They're originally from the North Shore of Lake Huron, and they've been displaced to far northern Ontario. So ultimately, they want to see if they can go home, if they can resettle, and if a mass exodus is in fact possible. So there's an exploratory mission of about 6 people who go on this quest over the course of a summer. And that's both books in a nutshell.